At Land Bank, we are committed to serving South African commercial and emerging agriculture by bringing specially designed financial services within the reach of farmers across the nation. Here is one of our success stories. Chiridzi Machidzura is a 35-year-old multi-award-winning dairy farmer based in Stutterheim, Eastern Cape. Chiridzi and his wife Adivaro Machidzura operate across two farms, namely a newly acquired farm in Stutterheim and a dairy farm in Alexandria, where they have a 20% shareholding ownership. Chiridzi is a skilled and innovative farmer who has steadily built his reputation as one of South Africa's leading dairy farmers. In 2023, Chiridzi and the Machidzura Family Trust received critical financial support from Land Bank through their blended finance scheme. The blended finance scheme, established in partnership with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, is a part grant and part loan funding program set up to commercialize developing farmers and promote majority black-owned enterprises. Through the Land Bank funding and support, Chiridzi was successful in purchasing the 357-hectare farm in Stutterheim. This has been a crucial step in realizing his long-term vision of owning and fully developing his own farm. Initially, his focus was on heifer rearing and winter silage production to support the adjacent dairy farm. However, he is now expanding his vision to develop his farm into a fully operational dairy and irrigation infrastructure. He secured water rights for irrigation and he obtained further funding to purchase the necessary irrigation systems. Despite his success, Chiridzi faces challenges typical of growing farms. The phased development of the farm, beginning with irrigation, followed by dairy infrastructure, and finally cattle acquisition, requires careful planning and significant investment. However, Chiridzi's experience, having managed herds of over 1,000 dairy cows and being recognized with multiple awards, positions him well to navigate these challenges. In addition to his on-farm activities, Chiridzi is involved in several influential agricultural bodies where he continues to learn from the best in the industry. Chiridzi Machidzura is not only a successful farmer, but a role model for others who aspire to build a legacy in agriculture. His dedication to sustainable and profitable farming, combined with his resilience in overcoming challenges, makes him a shining example of what's possible with the right support and a clear vision for growth. Chiridzi's story emphasizes Land Bank's commitment to empowering farmers and supporting their growth, thereby contributing to the transformation of the South African agricultural sector. Land Bank, we stand by you. At Land Bank, we are committed to serving South African commercial and emerging agriculture by bringing specially designed financial services within the reach of farmers across the nation. Here is one of our success stories. Vumile Mzinzi, a 37-year-old farmer from the Eastern Cape, is the driving force behind Matuwana Agencies Pty Limited, a family-run farming business located in the Maclear district, 60 kilometers north of Mthatha. Vumile, a 55% shareholder, manages the operation alongside his father, Tumegile Mzinzi, a seasoned farmer with over 20 years of experience. Together, they lead a team of 9 permanent workers and employ up to 60 seasonal workers during peak seasons in their diversified farming operation that includes maize, potatoes, dry beans, and livestock farming across both privately owned and leased properties. As a registered pharmacist with a BSc degree, Vumile's journey into farming is unique. After being involved part-time since 2013, he joined the family farming business full-time in 2020. His commitment to the farm was recognized when he was named the Toyota Emerging Farmer of the Year in 2021. In 2023, the Mzinzi family secured financing from Land Bank's Blended Finance Scheme. The Blended Finance Scheme, established in partnership with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, is a part grant and part loan funding program set up in order to commercialize developing farmers and promote majority black-owned enterprises. Vumile's goals are to compete on equal footing with the large commercial farms in the surrounding areas. The Land Bank funding has allowed the Mzinzis to acquire top-tier agricultural machinery, which has increased their planting efficiency and enabled them to optimize both production and harvesting times. The financial support has allowed them to lease more land, thereby boosting their capacity and competitive edge. Despite their progress, the Mzinzis face several challenges, with the most pressing being weather-related issues and the narrow window for planting. Vumile works hard to ensure that planting proceeds as planned and that re-advanced production funding is secured in time to avoid cash flow disruptions. Vumile Mzinzi is an inspiration to other young farmers in South Africa. His ability to balance modern farming techniques with traditional values, along with his determination to scale his family's farming business, makes him a role model in the agricultural community. With the continued support of Land Bank and a clear vision for the future, Vumile is well on his way to cement a lasting impact within the farming industry. Land Bank stands proud in empowering farmers like Matuwana agencies to ensure that the delivery of land, capacity, skills and financial resources take place for the benefit of the emerging farming sector. Land Bank, we stand by you.
Good afternoon and welcome to each and every one of you. Of course, this conversation is being broadcasted on all social media platforms, so to our audience online, a warm welcome to you as well. My name is Duncan Masiwa, the assistant editor for the agricultural publication Food for Mzansi. And of course, I think you've joined what I believe is one of the most important conversations that are shaping the future of South African agriculture. Of course, over the next 3 days, we'll be hosting the Land Bank lunchtime conversations with Food for Mzansi. And these conversations are really directed and geared towards farmers and making sure that you have access to both the information that you need to grow your farms, but also to make sure that you are able to engage directly with some of the decision makers when it comes to funding as well as insurance, so that you can have one-on-one conversations with these role players. Now, of course, over the next few days, we'll be touching on everything from the Blended Finance Program as well as the Agro-Energy Fund. We'll also be looking a bit at how Land Bank is repositioning itself to deliver on its development finance model. With that, we'll also be looking at the Land Bank Insurance Company and the services and solutions that they offer farmers in what is an ever-changing agricultural landscape. So those are conversations that will be happening pretty much over the next 3 days. If you want to be a part of the conversation, we invite you. And of course, this is a conversational platform, so feel free to ask questions. This is why we have this discussion here today. Feel free to ask questions towards the end of the session. We'll have a mic that will be revolving throughout the audience, and you'll have an opportunity to ask some of those burning questions that you've been having, I'm sure, for Land Bank. Land Bank is always a success. The lunchtime conversations that we have at Nampo Harvest, because we all need money, right? We all need funding and we all need insurance covering. So this is definitely the right platform. Now, without any further ado, today we'll be talking, like I said, we'll be talking about the Land Bank's innovative blended finance as well as the Agro-Energy Fund product. Quickly, I'm going to introduce my speakers. On stage with me, I'm joined by Christopher Chaka, who's the provincial head for Gauteng at Land Bank. We're also joined by Jabu Mpambo, who's the Chief Banking Officer at Land Bank. Also joining us on the far end is Mr. Silas Pushoko, the Strategic Partnership Lead at Land Bank. Joining them over here right next to me is Chilitsi Machidzula, who is a commercial dairy farmer in the Eastern Cape. His roots are actually in Limpopo, but he made the decision to move all the way to the Eastern Cape to establish his farming enterprise there. We'll get to chat with him a bit later. Of course, also joining us on stage is Vumile Mzinzi, who's a commercial crop farmer from the Eastern Cape. And not last but not least is Nandipa Kaka. Did I get that right? Kaka, who is the Lead Partnership Development and Ecosystem Coordination at Land Bank. Now, of course, you were very instrumental in the signing of the MOU, I believe, when it comes to the blended finance. So your participation, of course, here is very much important. Let's kick off the conversation, Christopher. I'm going to start over there with you. There is a mic somewhere close to you, if not on your seat. We pretty much well versed with, hopefully, with the blended finance program. Let's maybe talk about the impact that we've seen over the years. What impact have you seen from the blended finance products on farmers? And maybe also adding to that, where do you feel the bank can still improve, if at all?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Duncan. Yes, in the blended finance, as you know, it has been around for the last, this is the third year. And we did start off a bit on the shaky ground at the time, obviously because it was not the first time the blended finance was being rolled out. But when it came, it had been rolled out around 2018. And in 2022, it was brought back. And what we've seen from Land Bank, and I'll speak specifically for the blended finance itself, is there's uptake is huge. Okay, the appetite for the product is huge to the extent that most farmers, and thanks to the fact that we're also working with partners like GDAD, who help us with the selection of deserving farmers. As you'll understand and appreciate, we are a bank. We are not very much queued up in the agro support on site, but we've got a division that's now helping farmers, because where we see farmers struggling mostly is with compliance. As much as there's a grant element, there's a loan element which needs to be assessed in any other credit offering that is being offered. And our farmers, the new ones, they tend to struggle with the compliance element that is giving us the information that we need to assess. But once they get the hang of it, we've got farmers that are coming through to Land Bank for the third time in a row, which means not only have they been successful in the previous season, but they've also complied for them to proceed and continue on the program. And we're seeing a lot of effort or a lot of interest coming in, and it shouldn't be limited to that. I must hasten to add that, is on the grain farmers. They've really embraced it, and because of maybe the ease of their operations, the ease of complying in that regard, they are very much benefiting from this initiative. And it's a grant and a loan, and that grant is actually equity in your business. So it really goes a long way in de-risking transactions that would ordinarily not necessarily maybe be supported by any bank, and Land Bank is coming to the party on that one. Thank you.
Most definitely. Jabu, Christopher talks about there's an appetite for the blended finance model. Why do you believe the blended finance model as well as the agro-energy fund are key in transforming the sector, and what limitations have you seen so far, I suppose?
Thanks, Duncan. I think one of the biggest hurdles that farmers face is obviously access to finance. More specifically for new era farmers, you know, when you enter into the capital market space, you would require to put, at least financial institutions, will require you to put some sort of equity on the table, to put skin in the game. And a lot of our new era farmers don't have strong financial muscles to be able to afford that. So the blended finance scheme, in the form of the grant that it provides, bridges that gap. So that grant acts as an equity contribution for the farmer from the department, of course, as the sponsor. And that then enables farmers to be able to access finance that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to access. So it must not be underplayed how important just that segment or that provision is from the department. And of course, we play a key role in facilitating the process to ensure the right farmers are selected and eventually get into market. So I would say that's one of the biggest ways that blended finance transforms the sector. It enables farmers that otherwise wouldn't have qualified for finance to be able to access finance. Same applies for the agro-energy fund. Of course, that's geared mainly towards bridging the gap in terms of energy cost savings. And initially, when this scheme was put in place, was to address load shedding challenges. And thankfully, from Eskom, we haven't seen much of that in the last year and a half or so. But the solution is still available for farmers to be able to tap into. It mentioned the uptake or the appetite is vast. I'd say the biggest limitation is the size of the grants that are coming from the department. Of course, as you know, there's an annual allocation. If you look at, for instance, the target that we as a bank have set ourselves for this current financial year, we would expect to get at least about R1 billion in grants to be able to blend and support farmers. So you look at that billion versus what we have as an annual allocation, it's a big gap. So that's a big limitation. Of course, we'll need to look at innovative ways of bridging that gap by finding other partners, raising grants from other institutions to ensure that we're able to support farmers.
And I mean, you talk about the challenges and the limitations, and we've got a group of, a room full of farmers that can speak to exactly the challenges that come with access to financing and funding, but there's also success stories with us on stage. Of course, we'll be chatting to Chilidzi and Vumile a bit later. Naniba, you were quite crucial and involved in the agreement between Land Bank and the department. What was the main goal of this partnership right at the beginning? And maybe just your thoughts, how are you seeing that unfold a couple of years later?
Thank you, Duncan, and greetings to everyone. I think firstly, starting with the main goals of the partnership, the department had a desire to re-engineer agricultural finance.
Just get your mic closer.
Okay. The department had a desire to re-engineer agricultural finance in the country, in South Africa, looking at the market anomalies. The first one being, how do you bring black producers into the mainstream agricultural economy, as well as ensure that they participate in the agricultural value chain. So one of the key objectives is to ensure that it develops and ensures that black producers are able to participate in this economy. They are able to also commercialize and be able to grow their productive capacity. The third one is also ensuring that we increase access to affordable finance. As you know, when you are a new entrant farmer or new era farmer, the risks are high. So you need to ensure that you build a program that is going to assist farmers to close those gaps. And the other one is around transformation of the agricultural sector. How do we then contribute to land reform as well as redistribution by financing land acquisitions along the value chain? And the last one was to also assist the government to address the economic as well as social challenges. that being, poverty, inequality, unemployment. We can be food insecure as well as a country when you look at your communal land areas. So that was the main focus area that the department was looking into. In terms of the success stories, Duncan, I think the program has done exceptionally well. It was a much needed product because without this grant component where we were blending the loan as well as the grant, we were not going to be able to reach the magnitude. We've gone into every corner of every province. We've assisted every size of each farmer. We want to do more. And I think the success stories they are telling with the farmers that we have even on stage and those that we profiled here at Nampo as well as other platforms. And I think in terms of how we are planning, the department has committed the next 7 years because we allocated budgets for the first 3 years. And the first 3 years, it ended now in March 2025. So there is a commitment from the Department of Agriculture. Yes, the resources are limited from the fiscus, and we will continue to engage to ensure that this program is supported. Thank you, Duncan.
Now, if you just joined the conversation online, of course, we are talking all things blended finance, as well as the Agro-Energy Fund for those of our thousands of listeners that are watching on Facebook as well as YouTube. Welcome to you. Silas, you, of course, are the strategic partnership lead at Nedbank, rather. Many would be surprised how Nedbank is involved. Maybe take us through that. What exactly is your role, and how is Nedbank working with Landbank to offer both funding and technical support to farmers?
Thank you very much, Duncan, and good afternoon, everyone. So I represent a division within Nedbank called Beyond Banking. This division was literally born in 2020 when we at least went into hard lockdown. You know, I think the colleagues have touched on the fact that we did experience load shedding around that time. And as it stands, we do have abundance of electricity in the country. However, the cost to farmers is quite steep. If you think about it, we've learned that, Eskom has applied to NESA, there will be an increase. Those are added costs that the farmers have to bear. So our partnership really being a green bank with Landbank, I guess, is as straightforward as that. We share long-standing with Landbank. We came in that both Landbank and Nedbank are literally, prioritizing sustainability in agriculture. That's the first thing. Through substantial, sector support, as well as environmentally conscious, practices. I'm talking here about us as Nedbank being a technical partner to Landbank. So our role is that of ensuring that the solutions that are packaged for farmers does exactly that. Assist farmers with generating their own alternative energy sources, reduce their electricity cost, and the solutions that are then made available to farmers are quality products. So we have direct link with what we term OEMs, original equipment manufacturers and suppliers in the country, where we are able to source the stock. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we provide farmers through our relationship with Landbank with advisory. There's different systems if you think about, renewable energy solutions. You would have backup system, you have a hybrid system, a grid tie system, off-grid system. So different farmers will require different solutions. So our role is being a technical partner to Landbank, ensuring that we tailor-make solutions required by the respective farmers across the country, tapping into the blended finance to ensure that, they keep the lights on. I think I need to make a point around the importance of electricity. I think most guys in the room would know that without electricity, you cannot run your irrigation system. You cannot manage your crops. You can, livestock management. There's quite a lot of things that farmers rely on electricity for. And our piece is really around ensuring that farmers do have the right equipment, the right guidance, because we do even offer advisory in terms of the solutions that they need to implement. Yeah. Ultimately ensuring that the farmers are able to grow their businesses, contributing to food security in the country and sustainability of their businesses. Thank you.
I think your role is more important than ever before. If you look at South Africa at the moment with our energy issue and our crisis, so your role definitely being important. You might not be aware, but I'm sitting next to one of the top dairy producers in the country, Chalitzi, and his success story, of course, was earlier played on the screen. Maybe Chalitzi, for those that might not be aware or might not know, briefly share your farming journey and how you were able to grow your operation, and of course Land Bank's participation in that as well.
Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon to everyone. So I started my journey 19 years ago as a student who was just seeking an opportunity to just start his own life like any other person in the street who's trying to feed their families. And I was fortunate enough to be moved to Eastern Cape under experiential learning program. And from there, that's where I worked hard and impressed, and I got an opportunity to be a manager. And from there, when the opportunity to get into ownership level came in, we looked into it. And unfortunately at that time, a lot of banking institutions were not interested in it for reasons that are understandable today when I look at it with the wisdom of hindsight today. But Land Bank, they took it and they guided us through that journey, helped us formulate a business model that is bankable. And they worked with us for 7 years without participation of any commercial banking institution. And so pretty much Land Bank was right at the backbone of our development from day one. Fast forward to 2.5 years ago, it's not even 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, I got another opportunity to go outside of the partnership ownership format, to go on my own through the Land Bank Blended Finance program. I mean, if you look, I'm in a dairy industry. In a dairy industry, without strategic partnership like what we have with Land Bank, you almost have no chance to get into that kind of production system. The barrier to entry is just too high. I'll give you an example. The numbers that are thrown around by our experts, our economists in the industry, they talk about to milk 1 cow, you need an average investment of about 100,000 rand. That's a number that we've debated over the years, and it might tilt a little bit this way or that way, depending whether you are a TMR, dryland farming, or irrigation. And if you're going to be on a pasture-based system, we were talking about this earlier, you need to milk probably around 400 cows minimum to have a sustainable business. So let's take an example of a farmer who wants to milk 500 cows. What chance do you have if you do not have a support like what we have today from Land Bank? You've got no chance, I can tell you now. And that's not applicable only to black disadvantaged farmers or any other disadvantaged farmer. It's right across. That's why you don't see new guys coming into industry like ours every day. So once again, Land Bank gave me an opportunity to be able to scale up our business, to get into a point where we can be able to, we are now targeting by end of the year to produce 18 million liters a year for all 3 farms. Possibly maybe with a turnover of 140 million rand. Thank you.
Sure. That's fantastic. Just listening to you talk now, and also familiar there, of course, as well. For a long time, there was this myth that went around that Land Bank didn't support black farmers. And clearly there's an example on stage that that is in fact far from the truth. And not only do they do that, but they also support small-scale farmers, of course, with the program that they have in place. Vumile, I want to go to you. Chilidzi being very clear about the support that Land Bank has provided in his journey to leveling up as a farmer in an industry that is not the easiest and quite expensive. What's your journey been like as a farmer, and of course Land Bank's involvement in that as well?
Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon to everyone. It has been a very, very nice journey because I've been doing what I love. I went to school to do pharmacy. While my background, I grew up under my father, who lost his job in 1995, and fortunately he got a land to farm. While I was growing up, I was growing under him, farming in a small scale, 5-10 hectares. So I had that love of farming from that, and I went to school. When I came back, I think I graduated in 2010. We started to try to farm better, and he opened company in 2013. I started helping him in a long distance way because I was still working. My love for farming started to be reviving again. I put money trying to invest in farming, and then it was tough then until the government gave my father a tractor with all the implements, and then we continue farming. It was tough, I must say. We had a drought here in 2015, I think 2015, 2016, where he couldn't pay the money from the lenders for the lands that we were planting by then. And then we again struggled up to 2019, I think just before COVID. And then by that time, from 2015 to 2019, I was putting money to the business, and then it wasn't coming back because we had a new tractor, and I was excited. And then it was a kind of new tractor that we never had before, that no one else before. Even though it was a simple tractor, 75 kilowatts tractor, but it was a kind of a thing that was motivating me. So I started to learn the system from there, and I started to buy tractors with him, with any cent that we get, and then we're trying to, by that time, I was trying to negotiate with that funder that we couldn't pay because we had a debt. Then we negotiated well. I was starting to be in front and then pushing everything for him. We were together then from that time, and then I started to farm full-time in 2020. It has been hectic. Without Land Bank, we struggled. We planted sugar beans, potatoes, maize, and soya beans. Every time it was like we have to pay back the funders, and then we are left with nothing because there is this struggle as black farmers or new era farmers. We're planting on a lands that have not been worked for many, many years. And you have to try to correct those lands while using foreign money that you have to pay back after each and every harvest. And then you obviously expect to get so much of profit, but you don't get that. But we got Land Bank. When we got Land Bank, and of course other role players as well, we managed to see positive impact because we were struggling even with mechanization. We didn't have much tractors. We got a big tractor from Land Bank, which made things easier for us because we were now, the work that has been doing by 3 or 4 tractors, now it's done by 1 tractor. We're planting potatoes, and then we have to wash them more or less about 35 kilometers away from us. We have to transport those potatoes. We're losing on that way because again we have to pay the the transport to the market for those potatoes as well. So Land Bank as well purchased the potato washer and the shed for us, and then we started to do things now normally to try to see profit or So that is how things have been. I believe without Land Bank, especially last year, we had a drought here. We had a problem with cutworm. If we didn't have Land Bank, we couldn't come back. We're planting a very big lands, even though we planted on the leased lands. But with Land Bank now, we are able to fulfill our leases. We are able to pay our lenders. Like Land Bank, like we do, we've got a good relationship now. We are working on correcting our soils as well. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Nanupa, just listening to both Tlidzi and Vumile, it must warm your heart to hear these success stories, having been involved in the beginning, and to hear that the goals and the mission and the vision that was set in the beginning, that it's actually translating into the stories that we have on stage. But I can't imagine that it's easy. Surely there's challenges that have been faced along the way. Maybe take us through that. What have been some of the challenges that you guys have faced in making the blended finance model as well as the agro-energy fund work, and the solutions that have been explored?
So I think you are right, Duncan. There's a lot of challenges when you are implementing a program of this magnitude. We had to first get back into the market. You remember that the Land Bank was not lending for a good 2 years. So we had to build back the trust with our clients, with our stakeholders, with our partners. And I think we were known at the point to be a bank that is not assisting farmers. So the first one was, how do we improve on our implementation and execution? So this is an area that had remained, a sore point, that farmers want funding, and they want funding on time. So we had to ensure that we have programs that are going to respond to the needs. And in improving this challenge of implementation and execution, firstly, we had to take a deep dive. Are our policies and processes aligned to our mandate? Are we able to respond to the funding needs that are out there in order to support the agricultural sector? The second one was how do we build the necessary capacity? And this capacity is our internal capacity as well as capacity that can be obtained from our partnerships with the provincial departments of agriculture, because it's not only national that we partner with. We partner even with the local extension agricultural offices. So the third one was how to also look at our own technological enhancements. How do we respond to a sector that needs funding within a timeous period? We are still at a stage where we are improving our efficiencies as well as turnaround times. So we had to look at all those aspects that would support execution. And I think another challenge as well is, how do you get sufficient capital in order to support your development mandate? And I think funding programs like the blended finance scheme, they assist us, because if you were to give 100% loans, you would not have a sector that is growing. You would not have farmers that are able to commercialize, because they are not able to then grow faster. You need that blending at the beginning. Just like the Land Bank has supported farmers through various funding programs over the years, whether it's interest subsidization, whether it's programs that would assist during challenging times. So we had to respond to that, Duncan. And I think moving to the Agro-Energy Fund, we were responding to a crisis together with the Department of Agriculture, but the load shedding crisis, which is a blessing that we no longer talk about it much, but it doesn't mean it's a risk that does not remain. We've had slow uptake. And I think we want to position this fund, it's for all farmers in the sector. Whether you are black or white, we are appealing to all the farmers to take up this opportunity. No one would give you a grant that you don't need to pay back and it's not beneficial to your business. I think in solving this low uptake, we are increasing the awareness to farmers. We are saying we are wanting you, as farmers that are irrigating the crops, farmers that are involved in high energy intensive agricultural production as well as cold chain activities, please take up this opportunity, because there's funding available. And that funding is to assist you as we're facing the rising electricity tariffs and rising electricity costs, it's there to assist you to support your businesses, because farmers' costs are increasing, but the turnover base is not really growing at the level that is required. So we had to face that challenge as well under the Agro-Energy Fund. But we're hoping through platforms like this, we're going to be able to tell even good stories under the Agro-Energy Fund.
Yeah. Christopher, Nandiba talks about slow uptake. Maybe talk to us a bit about that. What are some of the main difficulties that farmers face when applying for these funds, and how is Land Bank helping, I suppose, to remove some of those barriers that exist?
Thank you, Duncan. I think the slow uptake, let's be specific, it's around the Agro-Energy Fund. We're not experiencing the same stack on the other side. But on the Agro-Energy Fund, what we're seeing is there was a lot of interest when it was launched, which coincided with the height of our electricity disruptions. As soon as those disruptions stabilized, the offtake was also stabilized, if I can use that, okay? And as Nandiba is rightly saying, I mean, it's not a fund that's, that you need to pay back, or there's still a grant portion on it. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Yesterday, I was at a farm who was doing 1.2 million birds per cycle. And we're just going through his energy consumption, okay? He needs 5 cents a bird of electricity per day. I mean, it sounds it sounds little, but if you look at the end of the cycle, he's used 1 rand per bird. So his electricity bill per cycle is actually 1.2 million rands. Now, if a farmer like that, and we are in the process of assisting the same farmer, we're in the process of assisting the same farmer with the agro-energy. If he runs off the grid, even for 5 hours a day, okay, that's a 25% reduction of electricity bill. Now, you're coming from 1.2 million, you're probably around 800,000 thereabout, which is really a huge saving for any farmer. And when one then looks at the cold chain, which you also alluded to, I mean, that cold chain has to be cold for a reason, and more so in winter, in summer rather, where the temperatures are high. Because the post-harvest losses of fresh vegetables as a result of not getting proper refrigeration is high on mostly development farmers. Because when you harvest in the morning, you're supposed to store this crop at 3 degrees for overnight, only for you to deliver. Our poor farmers are forced to deliver on the same day. And by the time they're delivering in the afternoon, they've lost half the crop due to wilting. So the product, yes, there is ESCOM that's stabilized, but the cost of ESCOM on its own is not such that it's very difficult for then farmers to be able to be profitable without taking up this agro-energy fund. So like Anandaba said, we really encourage farmers to take this up. It's not just for high-intensive farmers. I mean, another farmer is the dairy like yourself on the other end. I mean, he uses a lot of electricity. I mean, he milks 3 times a day. Now, with dairy, if you don't milk a cow on any given day, it can die. Sometimes, you milk only to throw away the milk if the prices are not good. That's just the nature of the beast. But the reality is the farmer in question that also benefited from this fund, he's got a solar farm now on his farm. And he's managed to reduce his energy costs by as much as 50%. So there is merit, there is value, and I mean, there's definitely cost savings for any business that takes up agro-energy fund.
Yeah. I want to give an opportunity to the audience to also ask questions. Please get your questions ready. Silas, Christopher talks about some of the harsh realities on the ground that farmers are faced with, and how the energy crisis has severely affected businesses and livelihoods at the end of the day. How do you think can Nedbank and Land Bank work even closer to help farmers access funding, technical advice and support for energy and infrastructure needs?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. So I think really when I look at it, Land Bank and Nedbank can use their extensive financial expertise, resources, as well as technology to ensure that this fund is really readily available to all farmers. That's the first thing. The other one is really around how does commercial banks really assist in this space, right? In that we need commercial banks across to mobilize as well as attract, private investment to increase, the pool of funds available for farmers. I don't think this is a responsibility for Land Bank alone. I think it's literally a responsibility for all banks in the country, because 1.2 billion miles sounds like, it's a huge amount, but when you look at it, how many farmers do we have in the country? What are their requirements? We need to ensure that there is sufficient funds available to be able to do that. The other piece is around how do we assist farmers gain access to new markets? Very, very critical. You're a farmer, you've been selling to a particular, you're supplying your goods to a particular store or particular brand. How do we extend that across the different provinces of this country and across different value chains? That way you are able to, with electricity, of course, you will be able to increase your productivity and increase a potential for your income as well as sustaining your business. I think those are critical things that we need to really dig deep into and ensure that there is continuous engagements and alignment in how we solve for this.
Coming over to you, Jabu, I'm going to ask my colleagues maybe in the meanwhile to just grab the mic over here so that we can get a revolving mic in the audience for any questions. But Jabu, what is Land Bank doing to make sure that new era farmers don't get left behind when it comes to accessing these products?
Thanks, Duncan. I think that's a very, very crucial question. The first obvious thing to note is Land Bank has got presence in all 9 provinces in the country. And within each province, we have branches. So that footprint enables us to be closer to farmers so we can service them well. Secondly, we are obviously trying to be relevant in the era we're in, being on social media, where we do put information on what products the bank offers, which is also very key. But linked to that, a number of our provinces run farmer days, farmer info days, where we call new era farmers for a session where we provide information on what products we offer. It's a platform for them to ask questions around the solutions that we have or anything related to access to finance. So getting closer to clients and giving them information is a very, very key area that enables us to ensure that we take as many as possible, these new era farmers, into this journey. Importantly, as part of our offering, we recognize that new era farmers are limited, some of them in their capabilities. I think Chris mentioned, you find some of these farmers don't have, they're not complying with requirements. And for us to be able to service and provide finance, we need some basic requirements to be in place. So we do offer pre and post finance support where we partner with suppliers on the pre side to ensure that farmers have bank statements in place, they have financials in place, they are able to put together business cases which we need to evaluate viability. And equally, post finance, we want to ensure that the crop is healthy and we're able to eventually recover the money that we lend to them so they can also be reinvested, and that's how we ensure financial sustainability. So we have programs that provide those supports both on the pre and post side. Also importantly is, I think Nandipa mentioned it, we are doing our best to really improve our internal processes. We are aware that some of our processes haven't been to the level of standard that we require them to be in terms of turnaround time, being able to respond to clients quicker and processing applications. We've rolled up our sleeves to try resolve that. And you can imagine where we are as a bank. As mentioned, we came out of default last year. We had been in default since 2020. We're really trying to fix an aeroplane that's in flight. And that's not an easy thing to do. And so we really have to spread ourselves thin and make sure we cover as much ground as possible. And when we have those processes refined, streamlined, it ensures that we can then reach a broader base of new era farmers.
Of course, we'll hear from Vumile a bit later about what he thinks Land Bank has gotten absolutely right, and maybe from Chalitsi a bit later, what do you think are the areas of improvement? Bishan, let's give by a show of hands from our audience who would like to ask the first question. We've got a gentleman over there. Of course, our online audience will give you an opportunity as well. If you'd like to pose a question, feel free to pose a question in the chat box, and we'll try and get to your question. Sir, kindly stand up and introduce yourself. Briefly, question as concise as possible so that we can get enough time for our experts to be able to answer.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is David Kok. I'm all the way from the Northern Cape. I'm a farmer there in Kimberley. I hear the previous speaker spoke about the basic prerequisites, the requirements to qualify for either a blended loan or blended funding or funding from Land Bank. I think that would be a good entry point if we know what is the basic requirements. Thank you.
Fantastic. Jabu, I'll give you an opportunity to maybe respond to that question, and then we'll go to the other hands at the back. I'd like to hear from this side as well. Jabu, basic entry requirements.
Thanks. If you don't mind, let me pass it to Chris. He'll do better justice to answer that question.
No, thank you. I think the basics are, you need to be in farming, obviously. There's a qualifying criteria that has been set up by the department, who happens to be the sponsors of the fund. Certain things that you need to have in place, or certain people that might not qualify. And statuses that are qualifying. That's from the softer side of things. But on the banking side, obviously your banking enterprise or venture has to be sustainable. So there's two things that we really look at whilst we are analyzing. Is there repayment ability? That is, can you pay back the money, the loan component that would have been advanced to your business? That's number one. Sustainability obviously is key, because you cannot make profits 1 year and then the next year you are down and under. So sustainability is also very important, which is why we then need projections around your cash flows and everything else. But the reality is, there is definitely a qualifying criteria, and it's not a difficult one. Believe me, it's not difficult at all. If you on the way out, there's pamphlets there that actually itemize that which you need to have in place. But from experience, what I can tell you is a lot of farmers, they disqualify themselves. And how they disqualify themselves is by not taking those compliance things seriously. We are a bank first and foremost. We've got blended finance to help you, the farmer. But we as a bank, when we advance money to you, we expect you to pay it back. That cannot be ignored. So that's the first part. When you talk about the grant, there's also a misconception out there. The word grant sometimes maybe is the wrong word to use for this type of assistance, because it gives a level of entitlement. So people think it's a SASSA grant. You come to Land Bank, you register. Once you register, you cross your fingers and your toes, and hopefully one day you'll receive a card in the post to say, go and get your money. No. This one, you really need to also apply your mind to your business, because what we are funding, we're not funding you, the individual. We are funding the agricultural business that you represent. So even our assessment as we do such is assessing the business itself. Thank you so much.
I think oftentimes we forget that Land Bank is a bank at the end of the day. But I also know that you do amazing work by taking farmers by their hand if, and in the event that their application isn't successful, you guys actually do a lot in that process to helping farmers actually be successful. We've got a farmer at the back. Quickly, briefly, your name and your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Mashudu. For me, I think it's just two questions. One, can you apply for both the blended and the energy one? And then on the energy one, I've seen it before, but I'm not a high intensive consumer of electricity. In actual fact, I'm running off the grid now at the farm. But to substantiate the investment that I require, I will not have much savings except on the fuel side, which is very minimal. Then I was just wondering, how do you only fund on the agro side, only the ones that are on the grid, or if I want, like I'll give you an example, if I want to add maybe the cold storage, which I don't really have, but I do know that it's going to require maybe 12 kilowatts, maybe batteries and additional 30 panels. Thank you.
Yeah, Christopher, maybe a split between you and Jabu. I suppose qualifying criteria there with the Agro-Energy Fund, and can I as a farmer apply for both the blended finance and Agro-Energy Fund?
Yes, as a farmer, you can apply for both. There's no limitation that if you qualify for one, you're disqualified on the other. I think what's most important to understand is that what your business requires, you, the farmer, are the one who should understand that. And we're coming in to give you the much needed support. So we cannot dictate to you that, no, listen, at this juncture, you don't have a cold room. Unless, of course, you can afford it at the time and there's alternatives. But the reality is you can apply for both the blended finance for whatever, which could be mechanization, inputs, even to buy a farm. As long as there is a repayment ability, you can also tap into into the agro-energy. But you can just come and apply for the agro-energy and nothing else. So the two are not linked at all. It's just what your farm enterprise's requirements are. Thank you.
Our other question?
Yeah, my name is Lerata. I come from Northern Cape, Agriculture Incubator. My question really is going to Nandipa Duncan. And I wanted to find out as to what would the requirements be from the land bank side for intermediaries that may work with farmers to assist them to access funding and other products that they may have. That's the question.
Thank you, Lirata, for that question. So we do have a department that's called the Partnership Development and Ecosystem Coordination Department. It's part of the new departments that were formed when we did the organizational review. So this department is responsible for ensuring that we build partnerships both in the public and private sector. So what you would do, you would then come to us and engage us on your offerings. We see how you're going to assist farmers to either access funding or to offer pre- and post-support finance, because as part of our funding package, we offer both the funding side, which is taken care of by the blended finance program, but at the same time, the blended finance scheme also has a business support grant component where we are required then to build such industry partnerships that will then assist farmers to farm better, to grow, as well as commercialize. So such partnerships, we do look into them. And in fact, we are actively looking, especially for local partnerships where we may not be able to have the footprint to assist them. And I think also our own internal budgets, the Land Bank also is allocated to offer pre- and post-support finance, because we've realized that without supporting our farmers, there's not going to be sustainability. So we are looking for partnerships, if I can put it that way. So you can engage us. We'll then look into what type of partnerships are we going to build with yourselves. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there's any questions online, but we've got another question there at the back, as well as the gentleman in the front.
Thank you. My name is Chanki Mashinini. I'm focused into cattle. I've got cattle that I'm renting, squatting in a white farm. What determines my growth is where I'm renting. So I'm trying to secure land whereby I could probably mix my farming business, crops, and livestock. And how do I secure land from you guys? Because I've already started out of my cash buying cattle, so I need just to expand so that I should have a diversified agribusiness. Thank you.
And your story is definitely not an isolated story. We hear many similar stories of farmers that are trying to access that kind of support. Maybe to our expert here, Jabu, you maybe want to respond to that?
Yeah, so the question is, how do you access land to expand, if I heard you correctly? Maybe to rephrase it, how do you acquire land to expand? So we currently don't have land that we sell. Obviously, as a farmer, you are in a space where you can identify potential land to acquire as part of your expansion plan. And once that's done, you can obviously approach us to assist you in that acquisition. And it will also qualify for a BFS or blended finance scheme solution. What we've also started looking at internally is we do have farms that are in distress that we are trying to rehabilitate. So out of that, we could have a new solution where we put those, parcels up and partner with a credible, competent farmer to sort of revitalize the farm in the form of whatever partnership that might take. So any farms that are in our portfolio that are going out, it will either be through a liquidation. Obviously, we don't want to get there with our clients, but we do have those instances where you've got clients that unfortunately were not doing the right things, they're not running the farm in the right manner, and it gets to that point where their farm gets liquidated. At that point, that piece of land could become available. But we want to circumvent the process before we get there for distressed farms so we can partner with credible, competent farmers to revitalize the farm. So that's something that hasn't yet been crystallized as of now. It's something we're looking at. But in short, when you identify a land parcel that you believe is suitable, more than welcome to approach us so we can help you finance.
No, I appreciate that. Now, another question that I have, your turnaround time. What are we talking about? Thank you.
That's a very important question. The target we have given ourselves is 90 days. And that 90 days is calculated from the time we receive all application documents from a client. If we receive piecemeal documents, unfortunately, that process could end up being longer. It's a target that we have set ourselves. There are instances where we are able to meet that target. Other instances, unfortunately, we have not yet been able to close those gaps. But that's something that we're working very hard towards. So in short, we target 90 days.
And that's very much possible, the 90 days. There's been success stories.
Yes.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
We've got another question here in the front. We've also got a question online. My colleague all the way in the Western Cape is sharing a question that came from online. This is Jordan Julius. How to get in touch for funding, any links for applications. I'm sure that there's application links on the website. But where do I go and what door do I knock on? Who do I call if I want to have access to, or if I want to know more about the Blended Finance and Agro-Energy Fund?
So there are different channels to look at. One I mentioned, we've got a national footprint. So depending how close you are to our offices, in each province we've got branches. So that will be one channel. The second is obviously online, our website being one, where you will also find our contact details that you can contact us on. And out of that, we'll be able to allocate you to someone who can take you through the application process. So it will be a hybrid, if you like, a physical contact through, the branch office or online / telephonic.
Fantastic. Your name and your question.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Russell Mlambo. I come from Mpumalanga, a farming company called ERG Farming. My question basically to you guys is to understand your application process. Let me put it this way. I submitted an application last year in February with all the required information, including the supporting documents. And it was Tubestead date. Is this how, I know an application, if you submit it, it can either go we are successful or unsuccessful. But in this case, it just went dead. There was no response. Is this how maybe you operate? If you don't get a response from Land Bank, then you must assume that you're not successful or what?
Yeah. It would be interesting to know what exactly led to your application not in being successful. I'm sure a conversation with one of the land bank.
Or you have to write back and say your application is not successful.
Yeah.
Maybe my understanding, I submitted almost everything, including the EIA certificates that you wanted. All the backup information I did submit.
Chabu, maybe respond to that frustration with farmers that say they have all the documents in place, they tick all the boxes. What could be the reason that I'm not successful?
No, thanks for that question. I think it would be useful to get the specific context of the matter at play. You know, what happened, who did you contact, so we can get proper responses there too. But to answer generally, and this happened in one of the provinces where a client like yours sent an application and the response didn't come, or if it came late. And in that instance, we had one of the relationship managers who had left, who had been allocated that specific application. And of course, those are internal issues that we need to resolve to ensure there's always a handover process if someone leaves, etc., etc. But it will also speak to the processes that we mentioned that we need to refine and are busy working on. Our tech platform or infrastructure is at a phase where it needs a proper overhaul, reconfiguration, where we receive online applications such as the one you referenced, would want to have a proper workflow where it eventually gets handed over to someone. Currently, we do have challenges with our tech platform, and it's something that, you know, we as the executive are working very hard to correct, because we're in a technology age. If you can't do things leveraging technology, you just get left behind. So it would speak to the processes, the technology, and, you know, inefficient process in terms of handover. Is this how we operate? No. And here's one example of how we operate. There's another example of how we operate. You do have cases like your one, right? And I know it's frustrating for a farmer to be sitting there and saying, but I submitted my application. Land Bank doesn't care. And look, we are the first ones to say, no, there's something for us to fix. We're not going to be hiding behind our finger. And it's something we're looking at. But where we have cases like you, it'll be good to, you know, get the specifics so we can follow up appropriately.
Fantastic. We've got another question there at the back and another one here in front. I'm getting messages, Christopher, online, WhatsApp messages from farmers in Nampo that's watching online, and they're saying we need to have access to the agro-energy fund. So already there's an additional client for you, hopefully. I've got another question here on WhatsApp, another person that is watching online. Do you assist startup farmers with funding? Maybe answer that question briefly, and then we'll take the question at the back.
Yes, we do. I mean, Land Bank is the only funder in the agricultural space that does not need you to have anything to your name. You don't need to have farmed before. Where you don't have the experience, yes, it's a risk, but there's a mitigation that we can put in place. So we open to all and sundry. And I think the most important thing that farmers must be also aware of is we don't go after additional collateral from their side. I think that's one thing that normally scares farmers away. We will fund, and our security is that which we fund. So you don't need to have anything to your name. You don't need to have had experience. I think, I mean, obviously in agriculture, there's one thing that you need a lot of faith, and you all definitely need to have a passion for it.
Most definitely. Let's hear from the gentleman at the back.
Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Mishek Ndongeni from Kokstad, KZN. I'm farming there with my two sons. Last year, if we remember, we had a very bad drought last season. And it happened when I decided to lease 2 more farms on top of the farms that I'm operating, which made me to lose a lot and to be in a state where if it wasn't for Land Bank and Planet Finance, all my 45 employees would be on the street now looking for work and the business would be closed. I wanna, commonly there are a lot of negativity and negative stories about things that are happening that are helping people, and I'm coming with a very positive one to say, for me, I'm one of the beneficiaries, and really it had helped me to be still a farmer today. Otherwise, it was bad because of the last season. Imagine if you planted 800 hectares of maize and there's a drought. There is no rain when your maize is starting to tassel, and up to harvesting, no rain. Like the last rain we had was 3rd week of January, up until September, no rain in KZN Kokstad. So if it wasn't for this help, definitely I would be out. Thank you.
Nandipa, another success story there. We've got a question here next to Rendani. Let's just get your question.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tapelo Matuwe. Mine is simple. From the speakers, I hear Land Bank is taking along, assisting farmers throughout. I think he mentioned 7 years or something like that. But what I'm trying to find out is that from the blended finance...
Just bring the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay, am I audible now? From the blended finance, do you guys have a kind of now it's gone. Do you have a kind of this loan that you're able to go back and
revolving?
Do you have something like a revolving? Let me explain it this way. Right now, I may need 5 million for an example, because I know that I can afford to pay. But in actual fact, my requirement is 20 million maybe, because I also want to acquire a farm. But can I come back and say, after I pay back this 5 million blended, can I come and get another money to qualify for another 20 million? I'm not sure if I'm clear.
That's definitely clear to me. Let's get the question answered.
Thank you for that question. I think it's a Tapelo. Yeah. You can apply for funding in subsequent years under blended finance. We've got a 10-year program, so we are in the business of growing farmers. So as long as you are honest with the bank, you pay our loans on time, we are able to commercialize and grow you. So we can increase the quantum. We've got quite a number of farmers actually that we've funded now for the 3rd season. So we can finance in subsequent years.
Fantastic. Any more questions from, there's a question over here in front.
Well, my wife and I run a family-owned pecan farm out in Maharis in Marubeng, Cradle of Humankind. The question that I had was, and I know that you specified the cycle. You said that your typical cycle is 10 years. On a typical pecan farming cycle, you've got anything between 5 to 7 years from the time that you plant till your first harvest. We're looking to expand. What can we basically expect out of the bank, given the fact that obviously it's a very tedious and long return on investment cycle?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so with pecan falls under orchards, and we are cognizant of the fact that you cannot plant a fruit tree today and expect to harvest in the coming year. It does take the time that you're talking about, which could be as much as 7 to 8 years, until such a time as you reach your full peak of production. We've got a product that talks to that, which is to establish an orchard. So the only limitation or the only catch with our product is you, like yourself, you then need to service the interest component only over the 7 years. Because if we don't allow you, if you don't settle anything, this loan will balloon out of control because of interest on interest, to the extent that, you know what, you will not even have the repayment ability on the 8th year. So someone like yourself, you've got an existing picking crop, you want to expand, that crop is there, but the only the product that we have is one that makes you, or a request of you to make sure that on an annual basis you're servicing just the interest, so that you keep the capital manageable. But products we do have.
Fantastic.
Yeah, hi. My name is Leanne Tlahwani. I'm just curious as to whether you are open to funding more technological-based sort of products, things that would maybe involve AI, maybe IoT, or are you more aligned to funding mechanization and just basic, development of farming? And then my second question is just in terms of export markets, do you have any assistance or help with regards to the development plans, helping farmers if they want to do that? So for example, with the pecans, there's a huge export market for that, not just a local market.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we do have initiatives that we can assist the people in your situation. With any crop, there's always an association with a body that kind of governs or regulates the industry. And my plea is to align yourself with those ones as a start, okay? Because then they will have all these export initiatives and what have you. But in the absence of that, we do have a department internally in Land Bank which can then assist you with access to markets, okay? I know we all very keen to export when we can, but the processes can be quite onerous, and you need someone to hold your hand, and that someone is not your banker, unfortunately, but we've got support that we can link you to, which will then make that journey of yours a whole lot easier.
Fantastic. One last question, the gentleman at the back, and then we'll wrap it up.
Just
oh.
The AI.
IoT, AI.
Yeah, very interesting question. So I think in simple terms, currently would finance the traditional solutions. However, we know the world is evolving. So, we are open to explore what it means to incorporate these new solutions in the farming value chain, because we are mandated to play in the full value chain. But in simple terms, currently it's traditional products with an openness to explore.
Transaction that you bring. So it doesn't mean you end up at zero contribution. We will see what the requirement would be. But in general, the grant is your equity contribution. So it's not a 60-40 across the board. Maybe let's unpack that part. So we've got 3 farmer categories, which is what we call producers. And we call it producers because we're not only looking at primary agriculture, we also look at agro-processing and participating along the value chain. So we would start with the smallest. So the smallest is your smallholder producer, which is your turnover less than 1 million. So you would get a 60% grant and then a 40% loan. So it's financing across the board, whether it's land acquisition, mechanization, production, working capital. We also have insurance subsidization as well, which is a grant. So we partially subsidize you for cover, for insurance cover. And that is at 6% of the total grant facility. Then once you start growing, you are between 1 million and 10 million. We categorize you as medium scale. So that medium scale producer, because you've grown, we then reduce the grant to 50%. So you'd get a 50% grant, 50% loan. And then the last cap, where we're now talking about commercialization, where you are commercialized, you are big enough, where you are between 10 to 50 million. We then talk about a 40% grant, 60% loan. After 50 million, you are ready for the commercial 100% loan. So we call you mega or a corporate producer. So those are the three categories within blended finance that we finance. So it's dependent on your size and where your turnover is.
Fantastic. Silas, I just want to quickly jump back to you because it ties with one of the questions that came through via WhatsApp. Just back to the Agro-Energy Fund. How do you make sure that small-scale farmers and new era farmers benefit from the Agro-Energy Fund and not just bigger farmers, I suppose?
Yeah, I think that is a very important question. I think it goes back to, the answer that my colleagues gave earlier around financial inclusion, right? As well as access to information. I think new era farmers ought to be included in the ecosystem, particularly the youth as well as women. I mean, we're sitting here and I'm saying the sustainability of farming is definitely going to be coming from youth as well as women. I think I've been in so many forums where I got to see the audience, I got to see the people that were posing questions. It's predominantly older people. How do we ensure that emerging farmers or smallholder farmers get access to information, get financial education, as well as support to sustain themselves? I think that is one piece of work that we need to do. And I think Jabu touched on the fact that the application process tends to take longer. I'm thinking around, in this new age of technology, how do we digitize the application process? How do we ensure that the credit process is slicker, ensuring, quicker turnaround time? I think those are some of the things that we continue working with Land Bank on. Leveraging our extensive network as well as resources and technology to ensure that those solutions are available to new era farmers.
Yeah. Chilidzi, Silas talks about digitizing the application process as well as a quicker turnaround time. In your experience, what do you think, where can institutions like Land Bank still improve?
Look, my view is that to all the management and everyone who has been who's been part of all the work that has been done to get us where we are today, congratulations, because this is exactly what, as a country, we needed. So my journey with Land Bank goes back 19 years ago. And in those days, the application, I think, standard application would take anything between 6 to 8 months. It's just not good enough for someone who's in a production system like ours. I don't want to imagine my fellow farmer who was hit by drought in KZN or what it would have done to him. But today I can see there's a huge improvement. Of course, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to improve the systems and the processes. For example, in a dairy industry, there's still some issues with the formulas that the bank works on that basically exclude certain people. And those are the areas that we need to work on, yeah.
Fantastic. Nandipa, maybe just concluding this conversation, there's farmers in the room that have never even attempted to apply for funding, the blended finance, never mind the Agro-Energy Fund. Some of them are also online. What advice would you give to those farmers who want to apply, but they might feel overwhelmed?
All right. Thanks, Duncan, for that question. I think, firstly, any program, we build it for smallholder farmers. There can never be commercialization without smallholder farmers. So we want to grow the sector, and growth starts with your smallholder. And I think where we need to engage the most with the bank is firstly with your relationship managers in the provincial branches that Jabu as well as Chris have outlined. I think that is where you get information about the product offering of the bank, the funding programs, because we all know those application checklists can be daunting and cause you to have anxiety. Sometimes you even turn back and you do not apply. So we need you to first be educated with our programs as well as the product offering so that you understand when you are going into grains or you are growing into horticulture or any other commodity, what can the bank offer you? and what are the products that we can provide for you as a smallholder or even any size of farmer. Secondly, we then take you through as well where we find gaps. You find that we do have a pre and post support department that can help you to close the gap so that if you are not yet investment ready, because sometimes you may approach us and we may deem that it's not yet time to invest and give you a loan because we need to be a responsible lender. So our pre and post support, it also closes the gap from a pre-support side where if maybe your commodity needs water licenses, EIAs, or any type of support, so would assist you to get that. And the blended finance program was designed by the department as well to offer that pre-support finance, including our own internal budgets that we've allocated to close that gap. Then post as well, knowing quite well that you are not experienced in farming, you would need the support in terms of technical skills, training and capacity building. Yes, we may not have an internal training department, but we can leverage partnerships through the provincial departments of agriculture, your commodity associations, as well as the private sector, to assist you to also close the technical capacity, because as we finance you, there is an expectation that you will have the technical skills. If not internal, we'll source it from external. So I think, Duncan, in short, our relationship managers are your first step in engaging with the bank, in understanding the application processes, why are certain documents needed. I know as lenders, we are lambasted a lot about the long application documents, but at times you may not need to submit all of them. There's different application stages that we take you through so that we pre-screen you and you move to the different stages as we move with you, and you understand why we need certain documentation and compliance requirements in the industry. So I would say that would be the first step, Duncan, when you want to access funding as a smallholder farmer.
I suppose find out from previous applicants or even the land bank officers about some of the common mistakes made by farmers in that initial application process so that you don't repeat it. That brings us to the end of our day one conversations with Land Bank, and of course much thanks to our expert panels here, your hands and mind for the experts that joined us on stage. Quickly, Vumile.
Oh, thank you, Duncan. I wanted to ask a question. Like you had Mr. Ndongeni and I, that last year we had a very, very bad drought. And one of my colleagues, who as well as client to Land Bank, was affected and then couldn't pay on time all the money. He was forced to sell his combine. I just want to find out if such thing happens, would Land Bank, with such a person that they know, and I believe he has been with Land Bank for more than I've been, maybe more than 5 years here. So if you can't pay a certain portion of money, could you, Land Bank, try to help that farmer so that he can plant and recover in the following season?
Who wants to take that one? Christopher?
Yes, indeed we can. I think it's important to understand that agriculture is, a lot happens that's outside your control. What we require and request of our clients is just to be honest and to be upfront with us as a bank. We can indeed restructure that loan that he's struggling with. It does not stop us from assisting him to proceed. Because, I mean, if you look at it realistically, I mean, he maybe has got tractors that he bought with us. If we don't fund him to produce, how is he going to be able to settle those farms? So from our side, we are very flexible around those, but I think what's important is just timeous conversations, and you must be proactive as a business person yourself, approach the bank and tell them, no, listen, this is my problem, and definitely we've done it, we continue to do it, and we're not in the business of repossessing. We are a development bank. Our mandate is to assist you grow. And you can only help you if you are also upfront and honest with us, and that way we will definitely be able to assist you. So yes, your friend farmer, ask him not to hide. He must come to Land Bank. Okay.
Our mandate is to assist you to grow. Thank you so much, Christopher. That brings us to the end. For those of you who are in the room, feel free to stick around. We've got some snacks at the back, something to drink. You are more than welcome to still engage with the Land Bank representatives that are in the room, or visit them at their stand. Tomorrow we are talking how Land Bank is repositioning itself to deliver on its development finance model. Of course, we'll be joined by the Land Bank CEO, who is in the room, Themba Rekotso, as well as the Managing Director for the Land Bank Insurance Company, Mr. Pascal Shipugo. Join us for that conversation tomorrow. And for those of you online, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to have you back with us tomorrow. Thank you so much once again.